But man, I love it. It's like, I don't hear many people talking about it, and I don't, kudos to them big time. So lately, I mean, my Spotify, and every year it tells you like what your top artists are, like you're like number two or number one and two and three. I mean, it's just like the whole thing. Hey, what's up?
Oh, hey, how's it going?
I can see you, man.
Nice to
Well,
see you.
yeah, nice to see you too. Nice to meet you.
Exactly. Hey, I've enjoyed checking out the little bits you've done on Instagram and YouTube, and
Thank you, man.
I really dig your playing. So it's nice to have a chat and
Yeah, thanks, man.
catch up.
Yeah, nice to see you. So, thanks. Happy to do it. It's
How's everything going?
it's been 2020 was a crazy year with of course with COVID happening, and then there was also I keep calling it a hurricane, but it's not a hurricane; it's a tornado.
Okay.
Big difference. But there's a tornado that came through and kind of the historic part in East Nashville, and
Oh,
kind of wiped out some buildings and some venues and things. But then most of them have built back up. But it felt very apocalyptic there for a little bit with all these like broken buildings from the tornado and then COVID happening. And then on Christmas, there was a bombing here that was really wild. And but I was in Knoxville with family and such.
mhm.
So but it was just wild. It was just like, oh my gosh. And I had friends that were playing downtown that night when the bombing happened. I guess it would have technically been the night of the 24th. And so
Oh,
then
so really close to Christmas.
yeah, and then I was supposed to
Wow.
play within that block on the 26th. So obviously that gig got canceled, but I drove past it the other day, and the bars that are open are now open. That can be open. That didn't suffer as much damage, but the
Hmm.
place that I was playing is this place called Bowie's, and there's a big parking garage. And then Second Avenue where the bombing happened. So they were saying like if this parking garage wasn't there, they would have been
That was like a
like
shield.
yeah. So it was just like what is going on in the world these days? So
Wow.
yeah, so we've just been hunkered down at home trying to you know make things better around the house. So yeah.
Everyone's
Um,
healthy and
yeah,
yeah.
everyone's been fine. So we've had like a bathroom remodel. And
Yeah.
so we're like, oh, I guess this is what my life is now. So okay.
Finding
Again.
all those things that you've been putting off for the last 10 years or something.
Oh yeah. It's like, I guess I need to learn about drywall and insulation and plumbing. And okay, because I bought this house a couple of years ago, and so we have a mortgage on it, but it's still been like, oh my gosh, wow, now I've got to worry about these windows and this like
Right.
thing. Because I wanted just to be like, oh, just no, my mind is just guitars and music and rock and roll, But like, hey, there's real life too. So yeah.
You haven't got so much of an excuse to not be at home now.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to make it the best of
Yeah.
that. So, yeah, but man, thank you for the got some strings. So love
Mm.
these guys. These are the best. Yeah, I love the pure nickel ones. Tried some of the other ones at the other NAMM, and they're really cool. And yeah, but I just always like the kind of the feel of the pure nickel ones, just like it being like kind of one, material. And
Yeah, it's not like plated nickel. It is pure
yeah.
nickel for the windings. So
Totally. Even
yeah.
like, if I buy jewelry or something, it's like you can buy a silver plated one or you can buy a real silver thing. Of course, it's much more expensive, but hey, you get what you pay for. So, but yeah,
And
thank you.
I think from where we've spoken before and checking out your Instagram and stuff, you love your 60s, 70s music, and that's kind of the
Yeah.
strings they were using then, as well as the stainless steel ones. They didn't have the
Yeah.
plated nickel coming into a bit later. So
Oh, okay.
um
Cool. Yeah.
so
Sounds.
I know you mentioned to me before that you're after that kind of tone, and they helped get you that kind of
Yeah.
perhaps a bit of a smoother feel and a smoother sound.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So, but the pure nickels definitely kind of were that kind of missing ingredient because
Hmm.
even with this, I was like, okay, if I can buy the Marshall and I got the Les Paul, and then, it's like just finding everything to kind of complete the package of it. And like, maybe I can buy the clothes and the jacket and the mutton chops, but but really practice, the sound is in your hands for sure.
Sure.
And but yeah, I think I first heard of Rotosound strings when I was in high school, and just like obsessing over like Sergeant Pepper or something. And then I read in some book, it's like, oh my gosh, I think that's what the Beatles play. And it's like, I have to have these strings. I need everything. So
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So have you been kind of obsessive about music and that kind of scene from early on in your life then?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of got the bug for it. Yeah, I just kind of stole my dad's record collection. I mean, it was CDs, from his truck, and learning guitar. The stuff that really kind of turned me on was really I was hearing on the radio, and that would have been, gosh, in like 98 or so. So it was kind of all over the place, but then kind of learning. I took lessons for a while, guitar lessons, and I took piano lessons before that when I was much younger. And but with guitar, I just kind of felt like, well, these classic songs, I mean, they never go out of style, and I just felt like all this other trendy like pop punk and like metal stuff, I was like, this is I mean, I was even young enough to be like, this is just a trend, and I can't wait for this to be over. But all the classic stuff, it just never faded away, and its appeal never I was never lost on me. So, and I don't know, I was just always a really skinny kid, and I was like, I don't even look like those guys playing football or whatever, or playing other sports or basketball or whatever. I was just like, I tried, and I was decent at baseball, but I needed an outlet other than like video games or something. So so I was lucky enough to have great parents that helped with lessons, and took that for a while. And then but I just kind of always really liked the British music scene from the 60s and 70s. And of course, as I'm sure there's a lot of based on American blues and things, and I like a lot of the American scene, US scene, and really everywhere. So I listen to like all music and all genres. And but something about that kind of late 60s, like, New York, San Francisco, LA, and London. I mean, there was just like, the fact that, wasn't Clapton, Beck, and Pace are all like kind of from like a 10-mile, like, or so, or we would say mile, of course. Or something like, that's just amazing to me. There's just something in the air. And I think it was kind of like a brilliant time of when the kind of isolationism of kind of smaller, the world wasn't as connected. Like, the uniqueness comes from kind of being isolated and within your communities, and kind of just creates like, oh, it's just kind of just a little weird here or something. But so kind of in the 50s, 60s, it was just kind of the uniqueness of just kind of smaller, more homegrown aspects of culture really kind of flowered then. And to me, it's just endlessly interesting then, because nowadays it's like, all right, well, I can sit here with this Les Paul and Blues Breaker, but hey, you know what? It's literally been done before. But not exactly trying to reinvent the wheel, just trying to put our name on it. So
not that I've been to Nashville myself, but I feel like London might have a similar thing with Nashville, where it's kind of a home of music, and it's gone away. Perhaps it's been gentrified or reinvented a bit, and certain aspects are missing, but there's always those people who appreciate it, and are still, you go to Denmark Street in London, and I think it's been listed as like a site of historical interest or something like that, so they've got to keep it how it was. And certain venues in London, a lot of them got wiped out, but there's still a few, like Ronnie Scott's, that are still holding on to that. And so many musicians that I speak to from the UK and overseas appreciate that era, and the fact that that it was a nexus and a hub for that kind of thing that bloomed out. And as you were saying, the kind of the metal bands and the punk bands, you can still trace them back. Whether you're going back to like maybe Black Sabbath, who were then influenced by some of the British Invasion guys, and you know, it does root out from there.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, lucky to have been to London before.
Cool.
So my main gig now is playing for this artist, Tuck Smith, and we're his band, the Restless Hearts. And so we were, but previous to that, I was playing with Tuck. I was playing bass with his band, Biters. And Biters went to UK and Europe a bunch of times, and I was lucky enough kind of just to trail in at the very end. But we did I think it was kind of just December, November 2017, we did a Europe UK tour, opening up for a band from Finland called Him. And it was a tour, and shows were sold out, and it was awesome. So we got to play the Roundhouse Theater 2 nights, and that was sold out, and it was so awesome. I was just like, oh my gosh, like I've heard the, stuff of the Stones and Pink Floyd and so many people playing there. And, I'm just like listening to their, songs and their live recordings, like, no, it's our turn. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
So I loved it. And so I was able to, and I went once with family, and we went to, learning about kind of like the punk scene, and so I told my parents and my family, was like, oh, we got to go down to Camden. We gotta go. And so sure enough, we get off the tube and we come up there, and I was like, this place is great. Look at this market and all these like shops and records and whatever. And my family, like, they're like, oh my gosh, what is this place? And
quite overwhelming first time you go
there,
right?
Overwhelmed, yeah, but they were happy and good sports, and we just got some food and whatever, and I just record shopped, and I just loved it. I was just like,
did
so
you
cool.
see any of the like true punks there with the big mohawks that kind of clustered around the station? Yeah,
I heard, saw some of those guys, and I think and then I remember seeing a shirt that said like King of the Mods, and it was Ray Davies, and I was like,
oh yeah.
Cool. And and then and I had a friend that lived in London for a while, and he was like, yeah, go down to Camden, ask them for a Henry. And I was like, what's a Henry? It's like, it's an eighth of weed.
Okay, Henry VIII. Okay, yeah.
I didn't get that far, but it's like, oh wow, okay. But I could see it. So, but it was cool, and it just kind of reminded me, like, oh, okay, like this is kind of the, maybe the Bowery area of New York City, or in Atlanta, little 5 Points, or in Nashville, 5 Points area or something, or kind of Wicker Park in Chicago or something. So it's just kind of, it's cool little, like, rock and roll neighborhood within each city. So Nashville's got that. And so because Nashville, you would think it's all country music, but it's definitely very diverse, and rock bands and punk bands and soul, and of course tons of country, and definitely, and there was a huge R&B scene here back 60s. Even like Hendrix lived here for a while and played down in Jefferson Street, and it's that area of town is trying to revamp, but it's like, oh man, there was so much cool music and history and venues here, and a lot of people just don't know, or they're just, and I don't know, maybe they don't care, or they just don't realize, they don't know what they don't know.
Are they revamping it to bring back that kind of heritage side of it, or revamping it in terms of putting new shops and?
Yeah, both. I mean,
I suppose you've got to have some, perhaps something to get the money in to pay for the sites of interest. But and just like even right now, just a few blocks from where my house is, there was this great record shop. That was also a venue, and they host outdoor shows, and it's right in a small kind of like one little block with a gas station and a couple other restaurants. Well, record shop got bulldozed down, and then now COVID happened, so now it's just an empty, like, just scraped gravel lot that's like half filled, and graffiti and everything on it. So it's like, oh man, that was a really cool record shop, but now it's kind of turning into condominiums. But what about the guitar shops in Nashville? Are those still going? You got like Carter's and are they being affected by COVID? They're all still okay?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, a bit, but honestly, I think people have been buying a lot more. So my friend Tobin that works at Rumble Seat was saying that, like, gosh, well, people are stuck at home now, so online sales have definitely gone kind of through the roof for them. So yeah, and even myself, I was just like, when it happened, I was like, oh, just some strings and hey, maybe some pedals, and I was just work around here to try to get stuff on the to-do list and on the want list. So yeah, I think the shops have been affected, just not as much people, and even playing downtown. I
Mm.
feel kind of conflicted playing shows right now, even promoting shows. I mean, everything is COVID friendly and COVID requirements and up to date, to all of those regulations. But even still, I'm like, hey, people, come out to my show, but not too many people, because that would be a crowd, and that's maybe a bad thing, but just enough people should come out, but social distance and wear masks, but have a good time. But not too many people, and maybe it might be at capacity, but it might not. And you should come anyway, even though there's a pandemic. And uh, I don't know. It just feels like
You've
so
got to think about everything, whereas before it
yeah,
was just the
yeah,
music,
yeah. Whereas you're like, wow, I
Mm.
must really like your band. There's somebody to go out. So I feel very appreciative to everyone that just go out and just we're kind of risking it too, but at the same time, we're this is our job. This is, we play music. We don't work music,
Mhm.
but playing music is work, and it is a job. So it's just such a strange time right now. So shows and stuff are happening here in Nashville, but it is regulated up to the COVID standards. And I think it's only like 20% capacity. So
Mhm.
but speaking of that, so talking Restless Hearts, we are signed to this label, Better Noise, and that is based out of New York. And the main guy at that label is this guy Alan Kovac, and Alan Kovac is Nikki Sixx's manager.
Ah,
And
okay.
Nikki Sixx, even like maybe 5, 6 years ago, completely on his own, when before Talking Restless Hearts happened, it was Biters. So when Biters was happening, all of a sudden Nikki Sixx was like in interviews, like, "Hey, you know what? I like this band Biters."
Okay,
And
yeah.
yeah, so then fast forward a couple of years, we happened to be on the same label management team, and so then we had a new record out, or we had a new record that was waiting to get out. It's not out yet,
Ah,
and
okay.
and because they're waiting for a point of entry to the marketplace, so we're waiting on, how do we promote this? What's our big push? What's our opening thing? And so then right about then the Mötley Crüe Dirt movie came out, and they were saying like, oh, our streaming is up like 300% from what it was before the movie. Guess what? Band's getting back together or something. That's what I think. I think they might have seen some dollar signs in the streaming. But so anyway, so then we're on the same label, and we had the record, and they were kind of waiting to put the record out for some other like great opportunity, just to cherry pick us out of the,
Mhm.
out of the swamp. And sure enough, with all that kind of happened, and Nikki kind of, it was around Thanksgiving, November of last year, when we found out, and we couldn't really actually say anything till January. So that was an exciting time. But so then Nikki asked us, and everything worked out, and we just happened to, everything kind of fell into that. So man, this time last year, we were sitting on top of the world. We're like,
Ah,
oh man, we just announced that we're going on this like massive stadium tour.
how long
We
was the tour planned for? How many
it was
dates
like,
do you know?
almost like 3 months, at least like two and a half
Yeah.
months. I mean, it would have been like June into like September, I think. So it's been rescheduled for 2021 this year. So, but even still, right now it's kind of 50-50 whether or not it'll happen.
Mhm.
Uh, because of course all those fans agreed to do the tour pre-COVID, and if they have to have social distancing shows or multiple nights
Mhm.
or things, you would mean a pay cut for everybody, much more overhead. And I think last year, or whenever they announced the tour, kind of seemed like, okay, this is the feel good hit of the summer uh tour.
Yeah.
But if that can't, I just don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, even the stadiums are at a certain capacity now. But will they be at 100% capacity come June? Because now that the stadium tour has been rescheduled for 2021, the first show actually is here in Nashville. So at least we don't have to like travel far for
Yeah.
that. But gosh, it's totally up in the air whether or not it'll happen at all. So we're kind of
yeah, you know, it's crazy, isn't it? It's affected the whole industry, the whole world.
yeah.
It's kind of some kind of, you know, solace in some way that it's everyone and everyone's in the same boat, and it's kind of beyond everyone's control. But equally, you know, everyone's lives change, you know.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna lie, man. It was definitely like strange right when it first happened. Like I felt like the calluses on my fingers like kind of went away. It was like, oh, and then I got on gigs, and it's like, oh no, I'm losing my identity. But yeah, but then just kind of like, well, I mean, hey, you know, if we're just stuck at home and there's records and guitars, and so it just remodel the bathroom or whatever. Or something.
So I've seen on YouTube you've put some videos up recently, some kind of like gear related ones. Has that kind of been filling your time a bit?
Yeah, thanks. I've been working with a pedal company out of Georgia called Missing Link Audio.
Oh yeah.
And they're if I can kind of briefly sum it up, their thing is kind of like Allman Brothers tone.
Okay, cool.
Like in a box, so they kind of mimics like, okay, this pedal is kind of more like Dwayne's tone from the Fillmore albums, or okay, this pedal is more like you know, Dickie Betts tone or something. And they just kind of, and now they're kind of branching out to just kind of have, you know, like an overdrive and then like a boost pedal and more of a treble booster, and now their latest thing is like kind of a 2 pedals in one, a 2 foot switch with kind of an overdrive and a treble booster side on top of it. So yeah, after this, I think I actually need to like kind of shoot some demo videos for them today, and yeah, really cool. And yeah, same thing. I mean, they just through social media just kind of reached out, and I think somebody recommended me to them. I'm super happy for it. And previous to that, I worked with, and I still do, and I rep a kind of a high watt style, high watt clone company called High Tone.
Yes.
But they've actually partnered with the Dave Reeves family. So they actually are benefited and approve and authorize these clones to happen. And this guy, Clayton, who hand makes all of them in Indiana, Columbus, Indiana. I mean, he's just obsessed with it. And I mean, he's owned like 60 or 70 vintage high watts, and it's incredible. So of course, I didn't have any of them set up here, but because they're so huge and loud. But it is, yeah, another awesome, just, you know, British classic. And I was lucky enough to meet Dave Reeves' son, who's a great guy, and it's just cool. It's just like he told me a story of, yeah, so Thin Lizzy came over and they needed some amps, and they just really dumped this pile of money onto the table and said, how much can we get for all of this? And was like, no, we still got the table and everything. And I was like, oh man, that's so cool. So yeah, I love hearing those small stories like that and just making it
yeah, I saw I saw one of the demos. I don't know if it's just one that you've got up on YouTube with that amp, but it sounded incredible.
thanks.
And I did wonder how they got away with having the aesthetics looking so similar as well. But like you say, they've got it licensed. And
yeah, so they've worked because after Dave Reeves died, the several, as far as the story that I heard was that several of the employees, then they kind of, each one of them kind of sold the name and sold the rights to other companies, and it was just kind of a mess for a while. But iWatt is revamped now, and I think the licensing or something is strange here in the States. I think it's called Max Watt, but it's all really similar stuff, and it's just a great, super punchy tone, and it's just like, it's awesome. It'll kill like small game animals if you put it in front of them. It's just like, yeah, there's a reason why Pete Townsend called it, I think, like like the death zone or something, standing in front
Yeah,
of
right.
the high watts. So um,
Yeah, I worked at a company before here that had an original one. I can't remember
oh,
which model high watt. I think it was like the 100 watt one or whatever it is, and with the matching 4x12, and that was a
yeah,
beast. That would you'd hear that like 3 roads away, while
yeah.
playing through that.
It's incredible, but nowadays I kind of find like, well, finding an amp that is, you kind of like sound good at really low volumes too. And
Mm.
so lately I've been running amps clean and then just running an overdrive pedal. And another British company that I really like is Origin Effects.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, that's the
they're,
company I worked with
oh,
before
really? Oh, no way.
that
Yeah, I've
had the
got
high watt. Yeah,
yeah, I love it. Yeah, I've got their Rebel Drive here, and I also have their compressor, the Cali 76. And
yeah, that
a lot of
revival
people, they,
drive's great.
oh yeah, oh my God. So I got the compact one, but the big
Mm.
one's cool. And like anyone that I see with that on, I'm like, oh, that's like, oh, I
That
love it.
that high watt I was talking about was actually one that Simon, the designer, took apart
Oh, cool. Wow.
to analyze to make the revival drive.
Oh, really?
So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
you can get some of those kind of tones in if you dial it in right.
Oh man, that's cool. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Set up. That's so
That's cool.
cool.
I know a few of the guys there, like Simon, the boss, is totally into the Allman Brothers, completely obsessed, and um, a lot of the British Invasion stuff, like Free and
Oh yeah.
Clapton and that. So
Mm. Nice.
that's the thing with not having NAMM. That could be
Yeah.
a good like opportunity to have these kind of meet up and conversations. But
Cool. Yeah, so obviously, yeah, NAMM's not happening, but this is a virtual event that they are hosting, and so you guys are compiling interviews and talking to artists, and yeah. So
yeah, exactly.
what is
Just to
this?
kind of offer some kind of substitute in some way. Usually we'd have artists come by the booth. Maybe they'd be doing signings, meet and greets,
Yeah,
or doing some demos or something like that. So in
yeah,
absence of that,
yeah.
but it's a great opportunity because it means that people all over the world can kind of see what's going on rather than you
Yeah,
have to be there in
totally.
person.
So yeah, that's the only way. So it's getting better all the time. Can't get no worse.
I think that's a cheeky little Beatles reference
Yeah,
there,
full reference.
right?
Yes.
I wanted to ask you about who kind of your top influences are on guitar.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, put some records out here actually. Yeah, so I mean, first starting out, I mean, yeah, I mean this Blues Breakers was definitely, definitely one that really took my interest, and yeah, just the sound, of the amp and everything, and just playing and phrasing, and my dad bought me the Clapton box Crossroads box set, and it
Was
just
it
kind
in
of
a
has like
DVD?
yeah, it's a
Yeah,
DVD,
sure.
and there was like 6 CDs, and man, I just like I read every word of everything and just looked at all the pictures just romanticized, and so I just loved it. And but it is kind of it is like the 101 for everyone. It's like start here, and then you gotta like branch out. And so but speaking of that, I was also hugely into Humble Pie.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
so I think this was like
Peter
maybe
Frampton.
yeah. So yeah, I was really, and I just read his book. He's got a great book out, autobiography, and he was saying that in his, he saw how seductive Clapton's style was, but well, if everybody's doing that, you got to do your own thing.
Hmm.
And so he purposefully chose, more jazz influence and different scales, and coming up with his own phrasing. And so, and that's kind of something, and that really inspires me too, because I'm like, yeah, at the same time, I'm like, yeah, well, I love this setup with these amps and things,
Mm.
but I like, well, where is myself in all of this? Like, I have to find myself somewhere in the middle of it, and use your influences, but not be your influences. And so it's
Sure.
kind of hard to kind of sometimes to draw the line, but that's what taste is. So
Hmm.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so lately I've been really studying Frampton and going on YouTube and like watching it at half speed just to try to like figure out, well, what are these notes and how is he thinking? But it's really, it's so brilliant, and just like, and just a few couple of phrases that you can steal from him. I'm like, oh yeah, that's awesome. So, and then yeah, then another guy, this is Fleetwood Mac, Then Play On. I think this was like Peter Green's like one of his last albums. I think it was his last album with Fleetwood Mac, and it's awesome. You know, I think yeah, Peter Green, you know, he's another blues breaker, you know, turns, you know, Fleetwood Mac, you know, so but his phrasing, you know, it's, you know, is so great too. I think he said that he would play harmonica licks on guitar essentially,
Okay.
and that's how he would kind of phrase his tones. But I mean, just his technique and vibrato and everything, and it's just so it's great. Yeah, and in fact, that's what I've kind of turned my Les Paul into. I've got a push pull switch on the tone knob for the neck pickup, so I can throw it out of phase and get that kind of Peter Green sound. And I had a friend, yeah, mod those pickups out for me just to just get it, because it's like no one's really doing that. And I find actually even with country music, and you know, with country, when I am playing that, you know, you kind of I don't have a Telecaster, but I need one. So, but they kind of get there with a real twangy sound and real low output, like really the kind of out of phase sound is like pretty close to it. And so yeah, I love that. And yeah, those guys are definitely some of my faves. And but yeah, so when people ask me like, oh, what's my favorite bands or whatever, you know, my holy trinity is like Beatles, Stones, and Beach Boys, actually. So but you know, if I say like, oh, my favorite band's the Beatles, it's like, all right, but what else? You know, it's like, yeah, well, lots of people's favorite bands are the Beatles. You know, you need something else to say. So yeah, so love T-Rex, Sliders, great, and just like style, and yeah, again, like kind of late 60s, early 70s, and yeah, and the Faces as well. And but really, man, I've been obsessed with Status Quo for
Oh
like the long
yes. Yeah,
time, dude.
yeah.
Just like there's just something about that like boogie rock, that kind of like pub rock. You know, it's kind of similar to maybe like Roadhouse-y sort of like Southern rock, but it's kind of the UK like version of it. But and I'm obsessed. Also read Francis Rossi's book, and it's really great too. It's autobiography, and yeah, and then plus there's another Rick in the band. So Rick Parker, that's my name too.
Yeah, they're one of those underrated bands, I think, that
yeah,
and again, a Rotosound playing band, but one of these ones where, you know, you'd have a room full of people or a stadium full of people,
yeah,
and they'll get everyone up out of their seats, boogieing along, like you say.
absolutely.
And you know, they had the riffs, they had the tone and
Yeah,
the
rhythm.
songs.
Yeah, so yeah, I was just so blown away by that, because I loved the Faces so much, and I loved the, you know, songwriting, and Ron Wood and Ronnie Lane, and of course Rod Stewart, and like the whole band. And I even got to Ian McLagan like
Oh,
twice,
cool.
and when he played in the States, and I was like the youngest guy at the show, and I was like the most starstruck I'd ever been in my life. It was like, oh my God, you're a real person. Ah! Like, you. Ah! And but he was so nice and just so incredible. And yeah, but what I loved about the Faces, you know, I loved it, you know, the 3-button hand me down, the kind of like boogie, you know, shuffle that they would get. But I feel like Status Quo came along and they just like perfected it, and took it and just drove it home. And even Francis Rossi says in his book, they listened to the Doors Roadhouse Blues and were like, that's the sound. That's what we got to do. Because of course, with like pictures of Matchstick Men, they're, you know,
Yeah,
they're like, you know, psychedelic pop era, which I love a lot. But
a big change. Yeah.
yeah, huge change, you know, all denim, which is just hilariously awesome. And but yeah, but just the kind of simplification of it, I felt they kind of did what like AC/DC kind of simplification meets, you know, the Faces kind of like boogie kind of rock thing, and just took that all the way to the bank. So
Yeah.
but man, like here in the States, like I can count on one hand the number of people that know Status Quo.
Okay.
It's they're just like, I don't know, somehow that just fell through the cracks with like, I don't know, maybe just in the South or in Tennessee. I don't know many people that are really super into it, and it just always kind of blew me away. And in fact, there's some friends in Nashville that have a Status Quo tribute band, and it's my friend Phil Schaus, and he plays guitar for a band Accept nowadays. And he said that he saw Richie Malone, the younger guitar player in Status Quo now, at a show, and we're backstage, and we're just like, hey, we played a Status Quo tribute band, and it's like, oh really? Yeah, come meet Francis. And like, Francis, we play in a tribute band in the States. And he's like, oh really? Do you guys gig much? It's like, nah. People don't really, nah. And he just like looked at him like, you cheeky little bastard. So but man, I love it. It's like, I don't hear many people talking about it, and I don't, kudos to them big time. So lately, I mean, my Spotify, and every year it tells you like what your top artists are. Like, they're like number 2 or number 1 and 2 and 3. I mean, it's just like the whole thing. On Status Quo.
Well, if you get a chance to come over to the UK and are able to come swing by our factory, we're just outside London, and we've got our archives here that I've been spending a bit of time going through. And we've got certain Status Quo, like our advertised campaign that's got those really? Guys in. So from the 70s,
too cool.
A handful of like artist photos and that kind of thing. So
cool.
I mean, a bit of a project of ours is to kind of get a lot of that stuff scanned in and uploaded to our website to make it available, because it's just interesting to see all that artwork and the photos and all that kind of stuff. So
I love that. Yeah, the artwork and all this small stuff, or just like this gig, or it just really helps like paint the picture. And I mean, I don't really know of any other brands like Rotosound that have the history of artists and that heritage that is just so astounding and just shaped culturally, the sound of, so much. And I think I was listening to even from the Sex Pistols, Jones, he played Rotosounds as well, and he mentioned it a little bit in his book. And
that's it. I mean, it's something we're really proud of, and it's good to get some modern players who are perhaps kind of nodding to that as well as all the players that are playing kind of music that perhaps isn't so related to that. It's cool to get guys using the strings that were the same strings that those guys used as well, and we're still using the same machinery that James Howe, the founder of the company, made the strings with. We're still using those old machines to make the strings now.
Brilliant.
Trying to keep everything as close to the original as we can, but with improvements to like the packaging to keep it airtight to make them last longer. Other than that, it's kind of keeping it the old school method and trying to make stuff that's kind of true to that music.
That's brilliant. See, that's what I'm all about. It's like, keeping one foot in the past and, one in the future as well, because you can't know the future if you don't know the past. You're, of course, doomed to repeat it, sort of thing. And those are kind of like, I don't know, my favorite modern day artists, are able to kind of have elements of old and new, and versus like, some like SoundCloud rapper or nowadays with like tattoos or whatever. It's like, doesn't know anything, but they've got millions of plays. So I don't know, maybe, I don't know. So, maybe they got something, they're doing something right. So I was like,
it was probably like that back in the 60s as well, but cool. No, I'm going to let you go. This is great having this chat. Hopefully we can meet in person.
Thank you so much for so honored being involved and included. So definitely rep them forever. So
cool. Hey. Nice one. Thanks, Ricky. Speak to you soon. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Jack.
Bye.